Hi, welcome back to Real Auto Reports. Today we have the 2013 Toyota Prius, and this is a Prius 5, and we'll tell you what that means in this Real First Impressions video edition right here from Real Auto Ranch. So let's take a quick look. All right, so from the front, one of the things I noticed about this 2013 Toyota Prius, especially in the 5, is all the extra options it has in the design cues. So you're going to notice these headlight assemblies are different from the first generation of this redesigned body. So you've got these lovely accent lights up here in the front, and of course your running lights that are down in the bottom for those of you who are used to the Prius. You're also going to have headlight washers, which is a nice feature, especially in a climate like Colorado, where you have road grime and all that yucky stuff as we come into winter. And then this is a nice detail here in the 2013 that I don't remember seeing in a lot of the older generations. This metallic black plastic piece that they've inserted here. It gives it a little bit more aggressive look. And, you know, look around at the Priuses that you see out on the road. This is going to start to stand out to you on the new ones. And you're going to see a similar detail around back when we get there. The other interesting thing about this particular Prius is that it does have the technology package. It's well over a $4,000 option, and it gives you cool features like the adaptive cruise, which has the radar up here in the front. And that'll also help you be more comfortable out on the highway, but it's also tuned to help keep that fuel efficiency right where you want it. So that's a cool feature. Let's take a look at the side and see if anything's changed over the years. All right, so from the side, you know, the Prius is an interesting vehicle because it's not quite a hatchback, but it is a liftback in the fact that the whole back lifts up. So you do get this arcing design, and that's really all done for the drag coefficient or the way the wind moves over the vehicle. The thing that you notice is that over the years it has gotten more sculpted. From the first generation, well, that was really a sedan body and we only saw it for a short time. And then we saw what people think of as the traditional Prius body that went to this kind of arched hatchback or liftback design. There's nice detail sculpting that they've added. You know, it's got the touch locks so that you can lock it and unlock it with the smart key. This particular model has the upgraded 17-inch rims, which is a lot nicer, I think, than the hubcaps that you see on a lot of the models. It just gives it that slightly nicer flair. And for a long time, the hybrids were kind of kept away from rims because of the drag. But obviously, this car still does very well with the 50 mile per gallon combined. The other thing you're going to notice is that it has good door sizes so that you can get in and out. And the design is nice, but did you hear that? Yeah. It's a little tinny for a $35,700 plus car, and some change in there. But again, this car's designed so that it's nice and light so that you can get the best fuel efficiency, but it translates into some stuff we'll talk about when we get inside. You also have these neat taillight designs, all the LED and everything. They've done a nice job integrating this forward motion into this beltline detail. So, you know, what I'd say about this is that Toyota's done a nice job keeping this car up to date and moving it forward, but you have to like the Prius to like its profile. So you have to make that decision. I'm not going to bias you in this quick real first impressions, but we are going to jump around to the back and see what we see back there. All right, so from the back, again, it's nice to see Toyota keeping up with some different design. One of the things I notice when I see the newer Priuses out on the road, like this 2013, is this black detail here up in the lip spoiler. You didn't see that in some of the previous generations, at least not that I remember. And you'll notice here that this car is, well, it's silver, so it's a kind of nondescript color. You can get it in reds and blues and things. But here you can see the detail, the taillight's a lot better. And I think it's a neat look. I think they've done a nice job taking it forward over the years. You know, you've got your button back here so that you can lift the lift back up. And you can see we've got stuff in there, so you can actually, you know, put lots of stuff in here. And but notice here this this height of this load floor. That's the thing I was talking about before. You know, it's just above my knees, so mid-thigh here. And this distance is not very tall. So when you start to put a lot of stuff in here, you know, when you pull this cover back, that's actually just a, you know, another can or half can higher than a gallon. So these are the things you'll notice about the Prius in daily life, and we'll talk more about that in our real video, the real review. But you can still fold the seats down, although you do have to get rid of the cover. And it doesn't sound as tinny from the back, which is ironic, but that's because this back door is mostly glass. The other thing I always point out about these Priuses from the rear is that this is actually a part of the rear glass under the spoiler here. So when you look through the back window, you have this gap in your vision. And for a lot of shorter people, this drives them crazy, or they have to get used to the blind spot because you have to raise the seat up and down to get around the blind spot. Because this back window is pretty flat, kind of like the old Mustangs from the early 70s where they went to that flat back window. And people complained about the visibility out of those too. So all in all, pretty tidy back here. You get your nice Toyota badge with the blue glowing around it for the hybrid. And we're going to jump inside, tell you what we think from the inside. All right, so from the driver's seat, the first thing I notice when I get into these Priuses is the shape of the dashboard. I think that's what a lot of people notice. It's got a center gauge cluster, and that's where the digital and the computer will be. Now, ironically, it is all monotone. They have not really upgraded these to the full color displays that we see in some of the other vehicles out on the market, including the things like the Hyundai Sonata Hybrid and those type of vehicles where color displays are becoming very popular. So we think that we'll see that as the Prius continues to age. But some other interesting things about this car is the shape of the wheel. I noticed the first time I got in it and drove it, it's more oval than it is round. And I think some of that's so that you have more knee room when you get in because of the placement. Now you do have a tilt wheel, but notice it goes in and out as well. That's a nice feature, but there's really nothing to get in its way. So it's all about the position and angle that you feel better driving at, because you're not actually having to look through it to get to the gauges. So that's actually a plus about this center gauge cluster. Now, the other interesting thing that you'll notice when you get into this car is the soft text. They're replacing that as opposed to the leather, and that's because it weighs like half that of the leather. It puts out less VOCs, or the harmful, chemicals that go out when you sit the car in the sun. And I guess the thing is that it feels kind of like rubber. I mean, if you ever used to wear pleather in the 80s, I know there's some of you out there, that's kind of what it feels like. So I can't imagine, it's cooler now that it's in fall. I can't imagine that this is going to be pleasant to sit on when it's 100 degrees in here. But they do say it breathes pretty well, and they've done nice things like this is a gray and a darker, like blackish gray, like the door. So you've got some nice details that they're trying to do. Some other things that I noticed is this wavy pattern in the molded plastic up on the dash. Now this is not soft touch, this is all hard. Again, they're saving weight. So I guess the thing about the Prius is it's all about economy, all about getting the best gas mileage, and you do give up some of that luxury feel because of that. One gripe that I'm going to get out of the way right now about reaching for stuff is that the heated seats are down here. There are people who've been in this car for hours that have not found these heated seats. So this is something, it's a bit of a strange placement when you have all this area up here that is untaken for the claiming. So those are our first impressions. We'll have more details for you in the real video, but let's take a look under the hood and see what powers this bad boy. All right, so under the hood you're going to find the 1.8 liter 4-cylinder with, slightly over 130 total system horsepower. And this is not that new to Prius people, so if you're looking at these for the first time, know that this is proven technology under here, hybrid synergy drive, and it is mated to the CVT transmission, so you get that continuously variable transmission feel, no hitches or stops or starts. The thing that you'll notice is, I noticed that after driving some of the other cars like the Toyota Camry hybrid and some of the Lexus hybrids that are out there that are also Toyota family, because this car doesn't have as much sound deadening or sensory protection, if you will, I actually noticed the transition between the gas and the electric more in this car And I think it's just because of that. It's smooth. I can tell it's doing it, where in some cars it's getting harder and harder to tell. All in all, though, I've said it a couple times, 51 in the city, 48 on the highway, 50 mile per gallon combined by the EPA. Those are their ratings, and that is phenomenal for a car. So if you do commute a ton, or you're driving around the city a ton, and you don't mind the look of the Prius, and you don't mind the things they've done to make this car get this kind of mileage, then I think you should really take a look, because this is a phenomenal power plant, I guess. It's hard to call it just an engine with all this electronics in it. But we like what they've done. It's not something you're going to work on, though, so remember, most of your services are going to be done at the shop, because there's a lot of voltage going through those harnesses. So let's see how this vehicle drives out on the road. All right, so driving the Prius is, well, I mean, you have to think of these cars as, I think, a sacrifice. Because when you get behind the wheel for the first time, you're getting into a car that its sole purpose in life is transporting people as cheaply as possible and in the best way for the environment as possible. Or at least that's the intention. We can have a discussion about the environmental batteries some other day. But the fact is that at the pump, you do save a lot of money. You go a lot more distance per gallon in these cars. And the driving experience really is kind of secondary for most people looking at this car. It's transportation from point A to point B. So when you drive this car, what you're going to find is that it steers well, it's exact. I talked about it a little earlier. I do notice in windy climates like we get here in the Rocky Mountains, those crosswinds out on the freeway, you notice, and the car does seem to wander more than I'm used to. And I'm not sure if that's the steering or the weight combination. When you drive a light sports car, you get that same sense in crosswinds. It can pick them up and move them over to the next lane. These cars are not what I would call pleasurable to drive. They're a little noisier inside than some of the cars in the same price point. You have to consider that $35,700 and some change is a lot of money for one of these Prius Fives. And you can get into something as big as a Dodge Charger V6 with all the options on it for right around that similar price range. So I struggle with the car sometimes because it's not the type of car I would drive. But all in all, it handles bumps well, it goes great distance well, and it's actually, the seating and the driving position is pretty comfortable. I do have to mention, though, I've talked to people about driving these, and there's a sense that they're hard to see out of because of the shape. Like, it's hard to see where the nose is. It's hard to see out the back because of that strip that I talked about in the rear. So keep those things in mind. Go drive them in very different scenarios, in parking lots, at night, out on the freeway. See if this car's right for you. Because, frankly, Toyota's had these cars around for quite a while, and they're still one of the most successful hybrids on the market, so they can't be doing everything wrong. And even the Chevrolet Volt pretty much copies this design in shape and even that visibility out the back. So it's all about that drag coefficient. We'll have the real wrap-up coming up next. All right, so that's the real first impressions video edition on this 2013 Toyota Prius. We said this is a Prius 5, so this is your top of the line. It's going to top out right about $35,700 as tested. Some change in there, and it might vary based on taxes and stuff in your area. And that does include the delivery fee. These vehicles, well, they really started the hybrid revolution, if you will, but they're a lot more plentiful than they used to be, but they're still a pretty small percentage of the overall motoring population out on the road. And, well, we're seeing them slightly change the Prius over time. There's a huge family now in the Prius C. The V we've looked at previously, the 2012, the red one, on our YouTube. The Prius C, which is the smaller city car. So why did they do this? Well, they're trying to make a Prius for everybody, but this is the original, the one that started it all. And generally, it has pretty good room. It has over 25 cubic feet of max cargo room when you fold the seats down, but what you're going to find is with the seats up, the rear cargo room is going to be lesser than you think because of how high that trunk floor is. But you can still get a decent amount in because it's a hatch. It's going to be fairly peppy, but remember, the Prius is all about fuel economy. That's that 50 mile per gallon combined in the 51 in the city and the 48 out on the highway. There is no doubt that this is one of the best vehicles when it comes to fuel economy, unless you're looking at an electric or plug-in electric. So for a gasoline hybrid, well, Toyota's still leading the pack, but the question becomes, is it a car you really want to drive? We'll have more on our thoughts on that in the real video, the real review, so stay tuned and we'll see you down the road.